Hello, everybody. My name is Rico Khan, and today we're going to be interviewing Jesus Romero, and we're going to be discussing just some different business practices, manager practices, um, and hope that we can learn a little bit more about how we can be more effective managers by understanding the core principles that it takes to really reach and teach our employees to bring organizational goals alive. So to get started, I want to just take a moment and have Jesus introduce himself. Hey Jesus, tell us your first last name, but also please share with us what is it that you do for a living.
Well, thanks, Rico, for having me here today. My name is Jesus Romero. What I do for a living is I am a branch manager for Chase and recently hired with the company, but I have many years experience in management
Let's
up to this
go.
point. Yes.
Let's go, man. Well, super excited to have you right here with us, Jesus, talking about what goes into being an effective manager and maybe what's some roadblocks that prevents us from being able to achieve maximum goals per organizational metrics. Let's jump right in there. um Tell us a little bit about the industry that you work in, and are there any internal or external factors that influence or affects your industry?
Well, Rico, that's a great question. So, as a matter of fact, yes, they are, and it happens all the time. A lot of things could do sometimes with economy. It could be different changes to the government. Even sometimes, getting into situations with weather related as well. But in general, things that would affect us the most for us would be just for organization like the one that I'm working in right now. It's to stay proactive. One of the things that we have to look for is always trying to remove the roadblocks that just kind of gets in our way. Because at this point, we just have to be able to analyze, stay ahead of the market, and know exactly what we need to do for us to find success in the business and the industry that we're into. Especially that we're the representations to a lot of clients who they're looking for that better quality of life.
Yeah. Are there any specific external factors that are happening out in the world today that's affected your industry?
Well, I would say, without getting into any politics and stuff like that, government issues right now. One thing that I can tell that it has affected my cultural background, which has been more with immigration issues, is the
Mhm.
fact of clients being scared to retain their finances in at banks. Because the fear of deportation, the fear of losing what they been able to build, within the last generations, and that is definitely has affected us drastically. Just for us to make sure that we, as an industry, we have to respect the policies and protocols that comes with my role. But at the same time, so we're trying to be sensitive and understand, the other side of the story in terms of our clients. So I would say that's definitely been the most challenging situation right now, recently, within this year, for sure, for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about, and again, just kind of keeping the same tune of not wanting to get too political. However, there have been decisions that have been made coming from our president and those in
Correct.
support where Hispanics have been directly affected. And so, um, really great call out on how something that seems as small as that could even affect the banking industry and organizational goals. Um, you know, when you think about like the culture that your organization has, or maybe past organizations over the past 5 years, have you seen any cultural shifts happen within the organizations? And if so, what are some examples?
Um, I yes, I mean, I would say just within the last 8 years that I've been in this particular industry, I feel like some of the elements have changed. I shifted more towards finding a balance. One of them could be work-life balance, making sure that the employees, they don't just come to work knowing that that they have to fulfill an hour shifts, but at the same time, and and create a financial opportunity for our clients, but it's also the fact that we have to find a meaningful purposes for them to come to work. You know, I think the organization that I'm in right now, which is another reason why I chose to come to this to Chase versus my previous organization, is you cannot find success unless you have the right team in place, and it starts with us as leaders, which I'm sure you're probably going to get into that in a minute. But I would say yes, just definitely being more flexible, with time off, vacation times, say, all the benefits that comes with the role is definitely has helped elevate definitely the culture for the team. And recognition, different events outside, volunteer events that we just invite our employees to be part of that, so that way they
Mhm.
know that it's not just all about bringing business to us. We're part of the business as well, that we have to go share that with the community as
Yeah, you bring up a
well.
really good point. Banks are a focus on, and not just banks, workforces focus on how to make and improve their employees' lives to retain top end talent. And so, great call out there. Another thing that really kind of stands out when we think about how cultures change, to your point, um, is the way that we recruit, right? The way that
Right.
we um, put practices in place to become more attractive employers.
Mhm.
And so, we even learned about an organization who's giving their employees unlimited vacation time. Could you
Wow.
even imagine something like that in your industry?
No, there's no way we can survive with that elements like that. But you brought a really good point in terms of finding the right people for the right job. One thing that I can tell you, and I think this has literally changed a lot more, probably because social media. You know how technology has evolved a lot more within the last 5 years, and I would say post COVID. That's literally when things change. Is the fact that the interview process, it's not anymore like the way that it used to, where the manager used to ask the applicant questions. Right now it's a little bit more casual, and it's literally, I want my future employee to tell me a story, to know
Mhm.
exactly what are you here in front of me, what brought you here, what are your goals, your aspirations, what is your 1 3 5 year goal from now, if you become part of this corporation. So the fact that it's it doesn't make it as awkward moment for someone that goes to an interview, or when you go up in your first checking account, or when you, for any situation like that, the industry has changed, and it makes it more comfortable for
Mhm.
each other. So I would say those are definitely one of the huge changes that I have seen, definitely, not just in my industry but in general. And again, I really put that a lot into what's how social media has influenced corporations and people in general.
You kind of got into my next question, which is, as a manager, how do you treat your employees? But even before you even get to those employees, thinking about how do you make staffing decisions or restructuring the team? Can you talk to us a little bit about how you ensure that you have the right staff in place, and ways that you manage that staff, and if they're not behaving the way that you need them to, how do you move on to getting the staff that actually meet your needs?
Yeah, great question. I can tell you from my experience, it's the way of manage people these days. It's completely. I'm a huge sports fan, so let's just
Mhm.
look at from the sports perspective, right? Um, you don't need to have in a football team 11 quarterbacks for you to win a game. It would be impossible. You cannot do that. So every person that I intended to hire and to be part of my teams, I need to make sure that they have certain skills in certain categories. It's okay to have your flaws in certain areas, but at the same time, you also have to make sure that the combinations of the team effort, once you build exactly and have an idea what are you looking for, and that is our job as leaders.
Mhm.
Our job is to find those tactical moves and those basically strengths from these individuals for me to create the atmosphere, because at the end of the day, everything that we put together as leaders is not necessarily for us, it's for our clients. Because you know, in any business, if you don't have clientele, you don't have a business.
That's
So
true.
I want to make sure that what I have is a fun, friendly environment, but at the same time, a very mature in people that have goals and aspirations in life. So once I get those elements together, are there some difficult questions when you go through the review process? Of course, it's part of the program, but in general, that's basically the main ingredients that I'm looking for when I put together my teams.
Yeah, what happens when um you need to make a change or restructure teams? Can you talk to us a little bit about, maybe an example of a time where you had an employee who wasn't, they just weren't doing a
Performing.
great job. How'd you manage
That
that?
is the most difficult, challenging situation that could happen to any leaders. And I think we have two type of exits for any job when in terms of letting someone go. I don't really like to use the term because I think it's very dry and not a pretty way to present the situation. But the easiest way that an employee would definitely let themselves go is attendance. And I'm sorry, but any job, any business would not allow that whatsoever. The second element and the most important thing for me would be, I'm a true believer that our teams are always a reflection of our leadership. So even if I had someone that it was hired prior to my time, that during that particular role or position or location that I was assigned to, my job is to forget the past. I really don't care what happened with that particular individual. My job is to make sure that I'm invested again, give people the benefit of the doubt, the second chances, then retrain him. And if I feel that at that point nothing is still happening within, some of the opportunities could be weeks. You may not have months for you to fix that. But if it takes, I would say that good decent period of time would be a 3 month period. And if you don't see those results or those improvements, and I'm talking not at that point of drastic improvements, especially for someone that has been around for quite some time. So it's one of those things that I really keep in consideration. And if none of those elements fall into place, then unfortunately it's time to move into, start collecting the right documentation, the right information. So that way there is not an element of surprise for that person when it's time to let them go.
Yeah, that's a great segue into the next question. Because when we have differences in the workplace, it's important as leaders that we recognize that right away.
Correct.
And I remember listening to a gentleman discuss the power of a leader of being able to move away from an employee as quick as you'd hire them, right? Because we hire people and we hire them like that, but when it's time to move on and to find the right adequate talent, sometimes we drag our feet because of HR processes, things like that. And so that's a segue into getting into like culture and what
Correct.
drives that type of mentality and culture for leaders. When you think about culture in corporate America within your organization at least, um, what's some characteristics of the culture that you're part of right now?
Um, Again, we like to invest on our teams. Well, we want to make sure that they get the proper training. We want to make sure they get the right tools for them to perform and do their job. I mentioned early work-life balance. I want to make sure that they understand that it's okay for you to have a life, but I also need you to understand that when you come to work, it's go time.
Mhm.
And my job in between what the corporation's requirements are asking to an employee to do and to perform for them to bring, let's talk about the revenue piece. It is my job to make sure that I connect the dots in between, point A to point B. So
Absolutely.
um, I mentioned it earlier, um, celebrating cultural events. You get these days, there's so many different type of demographics that you get it in organizations. So I want to make sure that I'm educated and understand and respect people's cultures,
Mhm.
particular holidays, special events, things like that. Just follow up with them and make sure that they know that they have somebody that's going to support it and make them a better versions of themselves. Um, volunteer events again, community events, things like that, that is just definitely make them feel that what they bring it to the table when they clock in and they clock out of the day, they know that it's just, it goes beyond the just those four walls that come in to work every single day. So that is, those are one of the things that I have noticed within my organization, that we're very big about trying to get into the community right now, and then let them know exactly that not necessarily we might be the best choice for certain type of business or certain type of accounts, and we're okay with them having another choices for them to go shop somewhere else.
Hmm.
We want what is best for them financially and individually as well.
Yeah, and that's a big thing in culture right now. Um, Meeting people where they are and not having expectations for people, but shaping your expectations to serve people. And so I
Right.
love that your organization seems like they have a fabulous culture and inclusive culture.
Mhm.
What happens when there's a cultural difference or disagreement within the workplace? How do you manage a situation like that?
Well, it could happen, and it has happened. On that, you probably, it's not necessarily you have to have all the answers. That's the point when you reach out to people in certain fields that they have experience on that. You get knowledge, you get answers, about how to handle different situations. But at the end of the day, what matters the most is to try and find a balance. We have to understand in any business, whether the leader or the employee, there's always going to be rights and wrongs and everything, but finding the happy medium, meaning halfway, that's the most important thing. And there's ways to negotiate sometimes to make sure you have a strong culture and
Mhm.
at your work, and those are the elements that, again, not everybody has that experience. And even if you do, you have to understand that different organizations has new policies, new protocols, new ways to do things.
Yeah.
You can Our job is to educate ourselves to make sure that we understand exactly what to say and not to say, what's appropriate, what is not. And then at the end of the day, the most important element would be listening to people's concerns before we make these speculations that this is what is best for them. So that's what are the levels that I follow, and then and I think every leader should do.
Yeah. When we were offline, you had actually organically brought up an experience that you're actually working through right now. Would you mind just kind of sharing what that cultural difference was and how you're addressing that situation?
Like in terms right now of what I'm dealing with work,
Hmm.
well, it's it's just my particular role right now is going through a lot of changes, where it was necessary for us to move quick changes in general, because performance, I would say, at this point, and it got to the point that second or third chances were not part of the equation anymore. So at that point, you have to make executive decisions where you have to know what is right. I've been getting some support from other locations right now just to fulfill the needs for our clients, but at the same times I have to make sure that I'm trying to find the right balance, because different locations, different demographics have a different way of communication styles. How
Right.
they approach not just the client, but also within each other, within the peer group. And at this point, I don't make assumptions from the
Hmm.
get go. I'm a very observant kind of person. What I'm looking for right now is just trying to find the balance in between what I'm trying to build right now with the team that I'm putting together, uh, versus the team that is actually supporting right now for us to get us through. And
Yeah.
it's a challenge. It's not easy, but at the same time, it definitely helps us. I want to make sure that both sides of the coin, they understand that there is always a positive element bringing into the equation, especially for the from the outsiders trying to help us out. May not be communication the right way, but at the same time, they bring in experience, they bring in knowledge, they bring in best practices, routines, something that we don't have in place yet. We have to, my job is to make sure that they see that side of the coin. I always call it a half glass full versus like a half glass empty. So by me presenting it and explaining the whys, which a lot of leaders don't do that, that's exactly what is going to make a difference. And if also I said earlier, the way that you lead as a leader. If you're not invested on your team, even when you say those words after that, it won't matter to them because they know that you're never going to be there for them. But
Mhm.
that's what we have to do in general.
Do you believe that the way that you are a culture carrier and manage your team, do you think that those um, ideals or beliefs are they aligned with your organization's
Uh,
culture?
Absolutely. And honestly, I would say the element of me being bilingual, and coming from a Spanish heritage, it's it's again, it's part of the culture of what this organization is looking for. We're looking for different backgrounds, different point of view, different challenges,
Mhm.
and then
It's inclusive.
it is very inclusive. Absolutely, and I feel that especially in the demographic that I am right now, the branch that I'm managing, that I was able to put all these elements together. Unfortunately, with when you do things like that, drastic changes, time is your worst enemy. But when you have the right team, the right mentality, the right, I call it the spark. When you find the spark in people and they know that they're hungry and they make the difference,
Mhm.
it's time is irrelevant, and great things will start showing up because you have to celebrate every small things that happens and you do day by day.
Yep.
If you say like, okay, in 3 months we're gonna be at this point, it's a long term. Like you have to
Mhm.
celebrate every single moment, and at the same time challenge, with constructive feedback on the things that we still have to work for us to improve. But to me, those are the main elements for a good solid culture. And then the fact that my corporation is really seriously supporting that culture is rewarding.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, kind of switching gears a little bit.
Sure.
You know, we had COVID-19. Tell us a little bit about how that impacted the industry you worked in. And then talk to us a little bit about what you learned from
Oh,
those experiences.
that was a challenge. Let me tell you that, Rico. I was during at that time. I was with a different organization, and unfortunately, when COVID started, I believe was March. So by mid-year, May, June, unfortunately, I ended up losing my whole staff just
Oh,
because the scary element. They didn't want to be around it, people touching stuff, things like that. So I end up literally just running a branch by myself for a period of 8 months, trying to think outside the box, working long days, long hours. But what helped me grow and become a better version of myself as a leader is I literally took a step back. I literally realized what I had in front of me. Be realistic with the situation that was occurring to me at that moment. So what I had to do is come up with some sort of like action plan and the things that I wanted to accomplish. Obviously, some of the elements that I needed other people's help, hiring, go recruiting people for me, training and for me while I was trying to run a branch, getting some assistance from different other branches to kind of get me by. Not necessarily a group of 6 or 7 employees, but even sometimes it was me and someone else just trying to get us by. But it was definitely challenging. I can tell you that my organization paid the consequences a lot in terms of we lost a lot of businesses during that time. But the fact that the plan that I was able to put together and present it for the corporation, it was good enough for us to turn things around. And since then, I was able to retain the new staffing that I was able to hire for literally solid. How long it's been? 3, 4, no, 4 years, 5 years since we had COVID.
Yeah, I mean,
So in
almost six now,
almost
believe
six
it or
years,
not.
and
Yeah.
then out of them, two of them were able to get promoted
Wow.
within the corporations, and then two other ones were able to get promoted outside of the organization as well. So I just feel that it was meant to happen and it was meant to be. Was it difficult? It wasn't challenging, absolutely, but it
Yeah.
definitely made me a better version of who I am today.
Yeah, considering how much you learned, how much organizations learned since then, if we were faced with an epidemic or a pandemic like that today, what do you think would be um, some ways that we'd manage a circumstance like that? Or that you would expect an organization to manage it? circumstance like that?
I believe that I think COVID was definitely a wake up call for all of us, and not just within this country. I mean, I would say just around the world. But the biggest thing is be true to yourself. You know, you have to make sure that um, the people you have around you, they have to you have to be crystal clear with expectation. You have to know exactly what they're looking for, and then there's even if we end up having another pandemic down the road, with let me rephrase this. You know that in any job, people don't leave jobs because they don't get paid well. They leave jobs because the organization and the way that they've been managed. So our jobs right now to get us prepared for a future pandemic or social situation or even something that has to do with the
Even a
government,
government
even
shutdown
the
like right
government
now.
shutdown. When you have the right leaders in place in an organization that is going to really back you up, not necessarily in your case, but let's say the government shut down. My organization is being extremely supportive right now for those people. They have some of them, they don't even have an account with us, but we're trying to give them assistance and give them the right resources for them to contact the right people, so that way they can try to get a hold of some of the funds that they have earned. So yeah, so again, the right organization and having the right leader in place could definitely prevent, no matter what happened in the future, to
Mhm.
keep retaining your staffing.
Yeah, you know, we're gonna switch up and come back to COVID
Sure.
in another question or so. But just considering like Henry Fayol's four management functions, which are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. They say those are like the four pillars that a manager must exude to be considered a manager or a leader. And again, those are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. You know, how, just step by step, what goes into planning to be an effective leader?
Well, I think one of them that is very crucial and important, and it wasn't mentioned, is communication. If you
Mm.
don't have a good communication with your team, if you don't have a good communication coming from above, how do you know which direction you heading?
Mhm.
There's there's so many style of leadership these days in any job in any corporation, and it doesn't matter your age. You can be just out of college or someone that has been in management for 30, 40 years. It doesn't matter. Is Are you willing to change? Are you willing to make the sacrifices and really understand right now what society looks like these days? We were
Mhm.
talking about earlier about social media. Someone that is in their 50s, 60s, you think they understand that? They may not, and they may not care about those things. But how do you bring those elements back so that way you can meet your team and your corporation halfway? Because if we don't evolve, we're not gonna move forward in general.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you say, or what's most important when it comes to planning?
Planning is literally, I use the word being proactive a lot,
Mhm.
especially during my environment. And I'm not saying proactive about you have to be 2 3 months ahead of what you're doing, but our job is like before the end of our day, just to make sure, like, I need to know what is happening tomorrow. So I would say 30 minutes to an hour before I'm ready to leave the office. I need to be the reason and have the answers for my team when I come to work the next morning with them, because even though it's part of the role as well for him to do that, the planning part is definitely gonna help you a better understanding how to fulfill those needs, the needs for your corporation in terms of the revenue that they're looking for, that financial piece. But at the same time, how is training going? Do you have any appointments? What is the day gonna look like? Do you have enough staff for you to support those needs? And then one element that we have not mentioned is customer service. If you don't have those things in place, your customer service is definitely not gonna be what you're looking for. And then what happened after that? Social media, it's a huge platform these days that you can go from being a rock star corporations to a completely different level just because of a one bad experience.
Yeah, perception is everything.
Perceptions, yeah,
When I think about planning, I can't help but to think of the saying, failing to plan is planning to
to
fail.
fail. That's correct.
And so, How do you accomplish a task without thoughtfully planning for it, considering what risk could get in your way? Um, Being thoughtful enough, to your point, do I have enough staff to even open my branch
Mhm.
and do I need to reach out to somebody and ask for help? Well, without adequate planning, you can't really forecast, issues, and you can't really remedy them and prevent them if you don't plan accordingly. So thank you for that value add. What about, when you think about organizing and leading, what goes into organizing and leading at, at, at your institution?
Um, I would just put it the other way around. Like the leading part is important. So, like I mentioned to you earlier, as leaders, we have to lead by example. And by you leading by example, a lot of managers or leaders in different corporations, what they do, it's easy for you to point fingers and says this needs to happen. I need you to accomplish this. I need you to do that. But we have to be able to also be able to perform those
Yeah,
duties for us to be able to lead by example. So as soon as your team knows exactly that you are not afraid to get your hands dirty as well with them, and then do the job, the organization will come after that, because by staying organized, it doesn't just require just one person. You have to make sure that everybody understands that they have a role and a responsibility for them to do the job. But you cannot start being organized unless you have people on your side and they understand that they're gonna back you up no matter what. So to me, the leadership part, comes first before the organization piece.
I couldn't argue that. Making sure that you have people to follow you.
Correct.
You can't organize, if you don't have
If you don't
anybody
have anybody,
following you.
correct.
Yeah, so I agree with that. What about controlling, right? Right. What do you think when we use the word controlling in conjunction with management? What's one of the first things that come to your mind?
Controlling could be so many different elements. You have to control lawsuits. For example, for a big corporation, you have to make sure the protocols are followed correctly. You have to make sure safety, for your
Hmm.
employees. You have to make sure that you have the healthy environment. You have to make sure that even gossip could be toxic, for things like that. So there are certain things that you can control and some other elements that you can actually literally avoid,
Hmm.
by paying attention, observing, listening to your surrounding and know what it is. If I start avoiding that noise, then I guarantee you I'm gonna definitely lose control of what I have in place in my business. And my job is not to allow to do that again. I'm going back to be proactive. It's okay when people make mistakes and they don't know how to do certain things. Our job is to identify if that mistake is going to happen, if that error is going to happen again. And if it happens again and again, there is my job to make sure the sick person understand, to be like, hey, what is happening here? Is this a behavior? This is something that you just kind of doing it because it's an easy way out for you to avoid following company guidelines and protocols. So
Very
the
true.
controlling piece is literally it's a team effort, but it's the most important thing they have a great controls in place is the follow-up piece. And the follow-up piece starts with me and the follow-up piece ends with me as well. Yes, I
Yeah.
can have other people that help me with those things, but if I don't check the box and be like, you know what, this is exactly the way that it needs to be or done, not because I said so, but because it's definitely the right way to do it, explain it again, the why we doing things a certain way, then that's how we can control.
Yeah, yeah, we as leaders, we're definitely the most influential person,
Yes.
or we should seek to be the most influential person, and we can swing the pendulum right or left,
Correct.
right? And so to your point, you mentioned, ignoring issues in the workplace,
Can't do that.
showing up and leading by positive intent are all
Mhm.
ways that we can directly control the environment
Mhm.
so that we benefit from it, so that the organization and employees both equally benefit from it. And so I completely agree with you. How do you encourage a culture of continuous improvement with your employees within your organization?
Um, Again, lead by example.
Yeah.
Lead by example. Celebrate even the smallest accomplishment. Uh, But at the same time, don't be afraid to correct when it's necessary. Find the balance between the wrong and right. I want my employees when they come to my office, because whatever reason, that they don't have that element of surprise for them to feel like that they're in trouble. I want to make sure that they understand that they're part of something big, and I wanted to celebrate with them every single accomplishment that they bring, based on the roles.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about like the reward system in
Hmm.
school about, that's one of the newer tactics that we
Yeah.
have to keep employees happy. But that reward system also acts as um, a piece of encouragement. But I guess the lack of receiving, you know, e-cards or,
Yeah.
best in us points or
Right.
whatever your
Yeah.
organization calls it, where it's a reward program. I guess the lack of could also be a sign that, hey, something behavioral wise needs to change for
Correct.
me, because all my friends and here at work and coworkers are getting them. So yeah, I agree. Making sure that we recognize when employees doing well, but
He-
also that we say something when we notice that something quite isn't right.
here's just to wrap this, your question is another thing that I have been able to learn, and it's I don't see it often, and this may have to do with the experience element from a leadership perspective. Is it's easy, but sometimes not convincing when me as the leader recognize one of my employees, because they feel that it's my obligation as their leaders for them to recognize what they did. My job is also to teach others that element, for them to understand, like, do you realize that what he or she did for us impact also your role, your position, and because of what he or she did, you were able to be doing other things. You were able to collect points, so that way your monthly bonus was bigger than what you expected.
Yep.
I want to make sure that everybody is also recognizing that, providing electronic e-cards, recognizing during huddle meetings, just walk into their office and say thank you for what you do every single day. That's the collaboration part that I'm looking for my team, and it's more meaningful when they know, when the source know that it directly is coming from a peer.
When you think about your role as a leader and implementing, getting everybody involved to be
Mhm.
culture carriers, recognizing each other, and even recognizing when someone's doing a good job is important.
It is.
Is as important as recognizing that person for doing a good job. What role do you think that plays into achieving organizational goals?
Oh, well, I mean, that is that is a really good question, Jermaine. Um, Again, just like I mentioned to you earlier, we any corporation, any business, we're representing something. You know,
Mhm.
um, you can be in the construction industry, you can be financial, you can be whatever that is, but you have to have the right pieces in place.
Mhm.
Let's start from the corporation, the structural part, like the training material that they provide to us, the allocations of hours that we can get for payroll, the weekly basis, the locations that they assign for us to do our job. But with all those things in place, if we don't have the right people in place, properly trained, and then they understand that we want we want them to put themselves in our client situations, we're definitely, Rico, we will not be able to move the needle in general. It's
Yeah.
you have to be honest, you have to be direct sometimes with the message, and sometimes in our
Mhm.
financier in this type of industry, a lot of times people don't want to hear what you're gonna say, but it's
Mhm.
not just necessarily to make them feel bad. Our job is to find solutions. Okay, yeah, you're in this situation right now, but here's what we can do in the next 3 to 6 months for us to change that behavior, for us to change where you are right now. Allow me for me to get you there, and I think that's basically the main thing for us to just kind of move forward in general.
Yeah, I mean, directing others to actually hit organizational goals is what that manager is there to do.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even need a leader if people were self sufficient 100% of the
Oof.
times. if they could go out and be self motivators, if each individual could be self starters and say, hey, I can plan, I can organize, I can lead, and I can manage this, control this holistically by
Right.
myself, we wouldn't need us. However, that's not the case. And so I completely agree. Um, you essentially said that management plays a huge role
Correct.
in organizational goals being achieved. And I couldn't agree more. Um, you know, have you seen an initiative specific enough to talk about that has been implemented um, to achieve a goal or to ensure effective quality control? Has there ever been an initiative
Um,
that promotes um, one that comes to my mind, I guess, is like a national achiever.
right. We do have that program, you know, for in this organization, and also in the one that I was before I became part of Chase. There is, but at the same time, this might sound contradicted. It's I'm a believer that I don't want my employees to feel that our clients are products. I want to make sure that everybody get treated like in trying to offer the service according to their financial needs in general.
Mhm.
It is good that my organization provides that, national awards, for people that have gone above and beyond. But when you look at from literally the demographic as a corporations, there are certain areas in any state in this country that they're located in a very better, areas financially versus another other locations that they're not. So for me to celebrate that just because of an award, I don't think that is fair and consistent in general, when it should be not necessarily about the revenue piece that you bring for a corporation, and then I'm going to reward you back, just because you did your job. Because I think the message at the end of the day, they just saying that everyone else didn't do their part, when that's not necessarily the case in general. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So it's I think, going back to the same thing, our job as leaders is just to keep teaching and motivating everybody else. And I think the better rewards would be like I mentioned to you earlier from my other job, when I had COVID, that I end up losing everyone, rebuild my team,
yeah,
and then I end up promoting four out of the six employees that I hire within 5 years. That to me is more rewarding than someone giving me a piece of paper, or a vacation trip to go somewhere.
right.
I'm not saying that is sometimes, it's not useful, but at the same time, it's just one of those things that I consider that it is my job to make sure my team understand that I have their backs no matter what.
I love that, man, and that there are other ways to win than a national achiever
Correct.
program or anything like that. One other thing that kind of stands out to me, and I guess this could be an initiative, if you may, but I know like having certain like customer experience survey scores is a way that some institutions like to drive client satisfaction or
Correct.
things like that. Or sometimes we have quarterly
Hmm.
campaigns that, you know, help kind of ramp up behaviors, if you will, to hit organizational goals. So, um, you know, going back to COVID and considering the culture that we're carrying,
Sure.
considering the continuous improvements that we're asking from our employees as leaders, you know, how do we recover from COVID-19, and what changes have you seen in your workplace that have come since COVID?
Well, again, definitely COVID affect us all. It teaches that we were dependent too much on the human element at that point. Everything was literally in person, and then it really forced us to be more independent, more aware of the changes of technology. I mean, like, if you notice everything now, that's a great element for somebody in their 20s to 50s, but when you're talking about my grandparents, for them to start utilizing mobile app, and trying to do everything electronically, it's a challenge, and it's something that a lot of corporations didn't took that under consideration. The fact that it's not easy, and they're not going to change their style of banking or the style of doing things because of something that happens for 6 months or to a year to a country. So I think that was definitely, I would say, the technology piece was the most important element for us these days. To be able to look at these days, you don't even necessarily have to leave your house to get grocery shoppings. Everything comes to you. But at the same time, I also feel that we're affecting the human, population as well, because a lot of those jobs have been eliminated because of this new type of services. So at this point, it's been great knowing the changes and then how fast we were able to grow in terms of digital platforms, technology, resources, even the training material and the tools that we have in our jobs to do our job. It's extremely advanced that probably we won't be able to see that maybe to another 5 years from now if COVID wouldn't happen at that point.
Yeah, man. During COVID, real quick, I had been working at the Johnson County Community
Mhm.
College, managing that branch, and that one closed immediately. Like I remember they were leaving for spring break, and the notice was for partners, external partners,
Okay.
do not come back until we tell you to. Essentially, it was like an
Wow.
indefinite notice on we don't know when you can come back, but don't return. And so we had to pivot, and they had to send me somewhere else where you have this manager making all of this money but
Oh,
couldn't even get into the branch that he was supposed to manage. And so they sent me to like a price chopper, um because we had to kind of pivot from how we had done business operationally, right? The hours changed, the way that we assisted clients in person changed, and we have a very in person niche job family, right? We need to help people in person. How do we pivot from that? And so that was really interesting, going from the community college into a price
right.
chopper. And then PPP came.
Correct.
Then I ended up working on the PPP project. Um, but that taught us like the flexibility within technology too, right?
Correct.
How do we have workforce still work, but we can't have people within 6 feet of each other or whatever. And so,
I agree. I
yeah, it was
agree.
it was a mess, man.
It was definitely a
It was a
mess.
mess. And we
Um,
learned a lot from it.
and honestly, I think these days communities, corporations are definitely prepared for something similar than that. I don't want to use even the worst words because obviously nobody wished that, but I think, can we control what's coming up? No, we don't have control over those things. We're just hoping for the best right now. And then, again, our job is to prepare ourselves first, prepare our families for anything that could happen. And then after that, just, keep bringing that support to our employees and our jobs in our communities.
If we seen COVID happen again, what are maybe like two or three things that you would like to see, um, that maybe didn't happen early enough or didn't happen at all during the first round of COVID? What's a couple things you'd like to see different?
Well, in terms of the job is, I would say back in the days, my team and my bankers were not really good about connecting with with our clients, like picking up the phone, calling them, sending emails, leaving voicemails, and things like that. I think that just kind of helped them to be more articulated with their vocabulary and be more comfortable with themselves. That is definitely something that I would say definitely improved and helped a lot. I seen a lot of employees that were like 20, 30 years younger than me, and then learning the meaning of being proactive, to be multitasking. They were not exposed to those elements, the element of surprise that, okay, yes, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you got out with your job, but what if we lose power right now? What are you going to do about it? You still have the balance, you have to do this and that. How you prepare for those things? Oh, I never thought of that. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you just kind of prepare for the what if, that is definitely will be something that I feel that we're definitely more prepared and
Yeah.
more aware of what is coming. Like, I feel that the learning how to be multitasking, learning how to be more vocal, more articulated with your own message is definitely a huge difference these days.
Yeah, man. You know, a couple things that I would have liked to see that I think that I would have done different during COVID.
Okay.
Um, Me personally, number one, like, cause we were in the banking industry and that was
Yeah.
really difficult to manage. And we closed our lobbies because we didn't really know like the harms and effects. And so I think making sure that we have adequate space, right? Banking centers or any center, I don't care what industry you're in, but making sure that we have
Yeah.
adequate space where you can keep the same staff and separate them, spread them out, right? Because that was a big deal. We've seen a lot of people get moved around
All right.
and staffing challenges came about because of we were moving people around and trying to accommodate the 6 feet rule and the workspace rule. And so I would like us to just be more mindful when we do new builds, um, was one thing. Another thing is, keeping the ability and accessibility to work from home.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to work from home, but I think, you know, more proactive intent behind, hey, Zeus, you're a branch manager. I want to make sure that you at least have enough technology to where if you had to send
All right.
emails from your home because of a power outage or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, you're equipped with
To do. Yeah.
technology. So,
Just to answer a little bit about your first question, I would say, just make sure that we have the space and, for us to do the job. That's a great element, a great idea, but you also have to understand from a corporation point of view,
mhm,
it's an expense.
yeah.
And there's something that they would not be willing to allocate that. But now trying to go into the second thing that you mentioned, which is to be hybrid, being able to work from home. I think that one it resulted in a great concept and a great idea. Into unfortunately, some people that start taking advantage of that. It got to the point that they were not literally doing the job and just getting a paycheck for that. So I mean, it's it's kind of risky, and it's hard to literally find the balance in between the right and wrong. Um, but I don't know. I
Do
mean,
you do you think that do you think that there's any style of management that could effectively manage work from home folks, to not take advantage of the system?
absolutely.
Do you think that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you think about that type of leaders, it's not the type of leaders you find in the field working with a human being 24/7. It's not that. It's more like the tech teams. Tech
Mhm.
teams are comfortable to work alone. They don't have the people skills in terms of communication. They have the mind. They have the power how to solve an issue within literally minutes. Uh, the element of surprise of having the people skill how to de-escalate a situation when something goes wrong within fraction of seconds is not out there. Are there companies that they're working on that right now? Yes. Is there enough money invested into those type of roles? No, there's not. So
Yeah.
and I think that's something that I believe the largest corporation that they really they're gonna have to invest and put a budget into those certain departments for the again, I'm going for the what ifs. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, great. But at
Mhm.
least they were prepared for situations like that.
One way that organizations work through
Mm-hmm.
strategies, they use like
Strategies.
strategy management, um, processes, and one of them is SWOT. And just to kind of tell on ourselves a little bit before the interview, I wanted to show you some of the questions,
All right.
so that we can feel a little bit more comfortable and confident and prepared. But we didn't really go into them into great detail.
All
But
right.
when we got to question number 8, you were like, I know what SWOT is. We
Yeah.
use SWOT all the
Yeah.
time. And just as a reminder for the folks who may have never heard of the SWOT analysis, which is a management process, a
Right.
strategic management process on how managers um, make decisions. They might
Right.
use a SWOT analysis and evaluate strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You know, can you tell me a little bit about how you've used maybe a SWOT analysis to make a decision, or maybe how you've seen an organization use a SWOT analysis to make decisions? Kind of like the decisions we were just talking
That's
about,
it.
right?
I would say for me, particular in my role, some of the things that I was able to utilize a lot the SWOT analysis during my time with US Bank when I was a start managing more than my branch. When I got
Okay.
to the point that I was managing 6 to 8 branches, it is impossible for one person to be in multiple places. The easy way for me was to literally start utilizing the analysis for me to understand how each branch was going, filtering that information from those managers to me to understand if we were in sync, if we have exactly the same idea, if we have the same concept, we have the same goals and expectations. Once I discovered those opportunities were not there, then I knew then I prioritized my agenda by knowing, okay, so out of my 8 branches that I have to just really manage right now, and I have a 3 to 6 months period for me to literally improve this. Okay, so out of those 8 branches, which ones is revenue oriented that is really matters the most right now for my corporations, but the ones that I can actually wait 3 or 4 months later. So I have to really identify the core issues for every single branch, every single manager, and this program was definitely able to help me find success in terms like that. Unfortunately, I end up losing 2 managers because, again, we go back to question 1 or 2 that you asked me earlier. It's you can control. There's certain elements you can only control, right? And then, but I definitely recommend for people to utilize that program because it's one of those things that is definitely going to help you become a better version of yourself as a leader, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, man, you're so right. You were even, right before that question was asked, we had kind of did a mini SWOT analysis where, we had discussed like, is it even practical for businesses to make larger workspaces, right? So that
Okay.
if we end up in a place where we have to have parameters around how close we can stand, or workspaces can only be X amount of feet proximity wise to the next one, or whatever. How do we evaluate that? And you had brought up a great point that the first thing that an organization will look at is, well, how much money is that going to cost us?
Cost. Yes,
Because
correct.
profit is the most important part, and so you
Absolutely.
know what will be some strengths of having larger workspaces? Well, we identified that you know if we ever got into a space where we need to social distance a specific amount, that we'd have adequate space for that. But
Correct.
what would be some weaknesses of having that additional space? Um, you got any weaknesses? I could think of a few, of larger workspaces that we may face.
Honestly, I cannot think about one right now. To be honest with you, it's
I think one, security wise, you want
well,
a
yeah, I
space
guess you're
too
right.
big, because imagine what that opening might feel like.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's the other thing I also feel going back to COVID is there was not enough resources or information to educate us about what to do or not to do and how to handle COVID. You know, we don't have to be doctors for us to know that, but we were one of the only corporations or industry that actually had to be in person in the building when everybody else shut down. So you would think they would have done a better job doing the resources for us to be able to perform it. And maybe that would have prevented a lot of our employees to leave our corporation because they felt that there was not enough time invested on us. So why would I
Mhm.
should I continue working for a corporation like this? So I would say that's one of the downfalls that I can see.
That was an area of opportunity for
Huge,
sure,
huge.
that we had.
Correct.
And using that SWOT analysis, if we were to go back and kind of like rank it and rate,
Hmm.
how did they react? Some strengths were, hey, we reacted, right? We were flexible, we pivoted, we sent and closed half branches, but opened the other half of the
Hmm.
branch and fully staffed those branches. We made
Correct.
sure we sent face masks, right? Remember, there was a
I
shortage of
remember that.
face
Correct.
masks. So allocation of face masks, of gloves.
Hmm.
And so those are some strengths. Some weaknesses were, you know, not every branch closed. And so
Yeah.
my branch closed. That means that I was kind of like this floater, and I had a much easier time,
Correct.
flexible work schedule than other employees had,
Yeah.
right? That were committed to branches. Those are some weaknesses. Some weaknesses on our responses were that we were late getting face masks out. We were
Yes, we
late
were.
getting gloves out.
Hand
We were
sanitizer,
hand
wipes,
sanitizers.
all those
You
things. Yeah.
remember them? They were coming in and doing makeshift building up plexiglass, right?
Plexiglass.
Those are some weaknesses. Those are also some
Even the signs
opportunities.
for distance within each other. I mean, everything just came late.
It came late, right? It was,
Right.
I would say March, we knew that COVID had hit us really hard in the US.
Right.
It wasn't until June that we were really functioning at a rate that people started to kind of feel comfortable
Correct.
in, right? It wasn't until like June or July, 3-4 months later.
I agree.
When we think about some areas of opportunity that came about, I would say making sure that we had the correct suppliers in line, right?
We didn't. Everybody run out of supplies. That was the problem. The country was not ready for this.
Remember, we had to have like people like in your role with personal connections with doctors and dentists who had
Yes.
extra gloves on hand. You guys had to
Yes.
reach out and make
We
deals
did.
with those guys.
And a lot of the times, those items cost us a lot of money for us just to obtain.
Double, triple sometimes.
Correct.
And then some threats that, that I think were posed was the threat of losing employees, right? They were
Yeah.
scared because we didn't have the right resources. Another threat were employees getting sick, right? That was a real threat, and dying.
Yeah,
Getting
that's
our
correct.
customers sick, them dying, were some threats. So, man, is there anything that you can think of management wise that we didn't touch on that you really want to leave our viewers with today?
No, I mean, the only thing is, do not get, for anyone who wants to pursue any type of leadership role. It is a tough, it is a tough role, but it's, I don't believe that experience is required for you to be a good leader. You have to be a good listener. You have to have great communication skills. You have to be human.
Yeah.
Have sense of humor, but at the same time also learn how to just take constructive criticism. If you learn how to manage those 5 elements, the sky's the limit for anyone. And I don't really, it doesn't matter if you're someone getting out of college or someone that has been working as a door greeter and then the son decides to be a manager in their mid-30s or 40s. It doesn't matter. But if you have those elements in place, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, man, I love that. I'm so glad that you left the viewers with something positive,
Of
something
course.
that was tangible that they can hold on to. Because being a leader is for everybody, right?
Correct.
Because we all can lead at our own capacity. Even in a team of 5 on a basketball court, you might have one Kobe Bryant,
Correct.
but sometimes Kobe needs a Shaq. Sometimes Kobe needs a Pau Gasol, another strong leader who
Right.
can also help influence them to make positive decisions. And so, Jesus, I know that you're a wonderful leader. I hope
Thank
that
you.
someday that past and future employees get to see the way that you lead with heart, by being a culture carrier, a positive culture carrier, ensuring that you're supporting and leading by example were some of the things that you talked about today. Leading with your heart, but also making decisions that are rooted in wisdom and experience, right? Things that you can really learn on the job, in the role, and being comfortable with making mistakes by how you deal with those mistakes. So, Jesus, super grateful for your friendship and for the opportunity to be able to learn more about your management style. Um, and just being able to do this interview was super special to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a great day, brother.
Take care.
All right, man.
Thanks, sir.
We did it, bro. We did it.
Oh, I did it.
Great job, man.